What's good, my boy? I was gonna make one more video today, and I thought this one can help a few people because I noticed this phenomenon a lot, right? With my generation has like a hatred for older people and the way that they clutch their pearls, that famous term that everyone throws around towards them now, pearl clutching. So in a fun little short way, I wanted to get at the what I'm calling the metaphysics of pearl clutching, and why we should kind of sort of be empathetic while also standing our ground with our views. The way I see pearl clutching is it's almost kind of like a defense of like one's ontological security, if you will. And by that I mean by like their being, their view of their being or their existence itself. It gets at that core when we challenge their deep standing traditions. I mean, think about the boomer generation. They didn't have access. We should be so grateful for this discernment tool of the internet, wary of the chaos and confusion it can cause, but also aware of the overall blessing we have received with this. I mean, whatever they saw is what they went into. That's why it was so easy to propagandize so many people into the war and these sorts of things. And I'm not getting into any disputes with that or make this video go on and on. But so many of them had these drives and these passions to do this and do that. And at the end of the day, many of them went into a war that they had nothing to do with for the most part and died. But because of the culture, because of the culture they were in, it was just kind of nature taking its course, as morbid as that sounds. And I'm not saying that to discount anybody. They were in a society which we can learn from. I mean, their respect for their elders and their peers is biblical. I mean, you listen in the Bible, some of the children of the patriarchs in the Bible, in the Old Testament, had very logical questions against the elders, but they believed in the commandment of respecting thy parents, honoring thy father and mother, and that was the society they were built in. As well as you had the lack of outside sources, so it was really easy back then with the television and stuff like that to get into certain echo chambers, if you will, and not find a way out like we do now. As well as many other things. I mean, none of us have really that strong of a worry that, I mean, we joke and stuff like that about getting drafted and that sort of thing, but like they actually did that like 3 different times, multiple times. Their parents, their children, and then we're the generation where we're just kind of like the Fight Club meme, just our battle is a spiritual one. And in that regard, they can do better to appreciate or understand our ability to discern and our ability to accumulate correct perspectives much faster than them. But we also have to realize psychologically what is going on without hating them, right? What do I mean by that? Catholics, if you watch this, you might not agree, but again, we need to baptize this stuff and take the meat and leave the bones of it. Nietzsche says something along the lines when talking about this panickiness of older generations reacting to new generations, of it's almost like they are reacting to being their views crumbling. It's a normal reaction and a normal thing. It's an emotional thing, and if we want open dialogue, instead of just calling them names and this, that, and again, there are outliers. There are ones you will never convince. There are ones you will never have a logical conversation with, but there are Gen Z that are much the same, right? We all know people that are our age that we cannot converse with these things about because, one, they either don't care, which same thing with the older generations, or 2, they just they're up into some sort of things they've discovered that clouds their view completely. So we must acknowledge this and be smarter with our own language. We must approach them with humility, and if they are willing to hear us out, we must understand that this psychological phenomena is going to occur when we bring things to a discussion that are very much niche. Most of these ideas that we have found and are starting to discover are still very niche, and these people, they're bad apples. Don't get me wrong. I do not like Piers Morgan. He is very much a rage baiter, if you will. And there's lots of that. There's lots of that where we have to be careful about. But we must go into these discussions with humility. Even Heidegger said another sentiment where he's basically like, we must acknowledge that they are being thrown full force into this chaos of their worldview and their generation dying. They're learning to deal with their ways either evolving as they see or devolving as they see, and we must learn to communicate with them properly with this and have respect, because it is called upon us if we live a Christian. Now, if you're some sort of neo-pagan or you're some sort of occultist and you're into all of this newer type of politics and that's kind of getting mainstream now, I mean, I'm not going to preach morality to them. I mean, that's between them and God to have that sort of thing. I'll have a discussion with them, but I'm not going to make videos preaching towards them. That's not my space. But to Christians out there, we are called to honor our mother and father, honor our elders, and there are insights to gain from that. We might have more access to information and have access to quicker routes to get to the truth of things logically, but they also have experiential qualities that most of us don't. In terms of, I don't know, I spent most of my life around these older people, my grandpas, my grandmothers, their friends, and that sort of stuff. And just their way of life, most of us have that famous meme. My mom, when we discover all this truth and we become Catholic, we're like, oh my God, my grandma was right. It really is just that dang phone. It is all about you need to pray. It is these traditional elements that we relearn and have a new appreciation for them and what they held. And we must keep that in mind before we start to criticize them so much. Like, I know this can sound very corny and very like, oh, duh, but I mean, this is very much a thing. If you ever want to get anywhere with somebody, you must learn to frame your conversations and talk. Like, let's say you get into a conversation with a controversial topic with a priest or someone who's opposite your political spectrum, or someone who is like that pearl-clutching older person, and they start to bring emotion to a logical discussion where they shut down logic. You must identify where the fruit will wither away in that conversation before you yourself eat of that fruit. Okay? You can leave it. You can say, okay, you've given me, like, say you're getting like heated or something like that. You can say something like, okay, you've given me a lot to think about, but I got to go do something, or something along those lines to kind of ease it without just straight up hate back and forth or an argument. It gets nowhere, because we can all learn, especially as Catholics, from these people. I mean, we have to move forward with humility and know we don't know everything. It's like I was saying in my last video, I was so caught up in this minutia and all of this debate and all of this stuff, and it was just the simplest things that were right above my head that I didn't look up and grab. I was tunneling in darkness, not in darkness, but I was tunneling with no end, and I didn't realize right above me was actually the most peaceful place to be for the time being. If that analogy fits, we just must be aware of this, especially in modern times. I know this is kind of common sense to a lot of people, but to a lot of people it isn't. To a lot of people, this is kind of just like a battle, and they see themselves on only one camp instead of seeing the whole battle as humanity against the deceiver himself. And we must unite together. We must evangelize, and we must stay united under Christ and solve our differences logically and faithfully with each other from a place of love. I know this sounds like such a 180 and really like corny from what I've like been talking about in the past, but not, and by no means am I perfect. This is more of a speech to myself, but I know many other people fall in this camp as well, so I felt like it might be helpful. But anyway, boys, I'm walking to the shop right now on these trails, and I got my donkey right here, about to give him some grub. You boys have a good one.